Hi everyone, this is Nick Pollock here from Roar Lions Roar. While you're here, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that alert bell so you never miss any of our new content. And if you prefer to listen instead of watch, make sure you check us out on your podcast platform of choice where you can subscribe and download each new episode. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening. Go State! Hello everybody and welcome back to Roar Lions Roar. I know a couple episodes I said we didn't need to do that because you know what you're here for, but it's just part of the DNA now at this point.
That's who we are.
Yeah, it's hard to not do it, honestly. I'm your host tonight, Nick Pollock. I'm joined by Mr. Craig Fritz, and Craig, right off the bat here, for those of you watching instead of listening, as a Thanksgiving purist, I have beef with your setup right now.
I just want to clarify that this is my wife's office where I'm moonlighting as a podcaster, and this is her personal Christmas tree and all the decorations that she has done. I don't have anything to do with it other than getting the boxes out of storage. Just so we're clear on where all of this falls.
You know, that's fine. That's fine. But you do have a voice that you could be using to say, hey, what about Thanksgiving? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, I will say, Nick, as a Thanksgiving purist, I do buy the turkey for our large family gathering that happens next week. So on Monday, I will go to the turkey farm and buy the turkey, and that's my contribution to the overall holiday.
What kind of numbers are we talking about for this family? I mean, because you have 800 kids already. So
yeah, like 1,000 kids. Overall, it's my wife's family, and I think we have 17 people.
Oh, wow.
And I get about a 30 to 32 pound turkey because we really like leftovers. So
of course, that's the best part. Yeah, that's fine. That was always when Holly and I lived in Virginia. We would usually go up to my aunt and uncle's in Manhattan for Thanksgiving, and then the next day we would go over to Holly's parents' house in Lancaster for Thanksgiving, and we would get leftovers from both to bring back, and then we would make our own then we would make our own Thanksgiving back home in Virginia like a week later. So then we'd have 3 sets of leftovers. It was a great system. Can you also? I don't want to tell you have to move your camera right now, but the viewers need to see what's going on just to your left shoulder here. Please describe what you just showed for those who are listening.
So those are exterior 6-foot nutcrackers that my wife got at Walmart, 2 different Walmarts that she had to drive to pretty far, and she repainted them completely to the color scheme that she wanted. Originally, she was going to build them. Yeah, she was going to build them, but just found these at Walmart for much cheaper and just decided to repaint them, and they'll be going in the front of our house.
Is there a part of you that is worried they will come to life?
It's like my top concern. It's like them coming to life and someone stealing them. Those are the 2 things that I'm concerned about.
You'll wake up one morning and those will come to life, and then all the 20-foot skeletons will all come to life, and they'll just be forming an army to take over the neighborhood.
It's absolutely terrifying.
So believe it or not, Craig and I are here tonight to talk about a Penn State Rutgers football game. You may have been confused by the intro here, but you know, there's not really a whole lot to say about this game and about the Rutgers football program in general, because they kind of just are what they are. Like they have a very good defense, especially considering how much their defense is on the field. They have a very good defense. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we expected under Greg Schiano. I think that was the thing that we all expected would come back first for Rutgers, was a strong defense. Not that even since Schiano left, like their defenses have remained generally pretty solid. But this is definitely a step up. They've done a pretty good job this year. They just don't have the offense to back it up. They've only allowed an average of 324.8 yards per game. But if we look at the most direct and recent games on Rutgers' schedule to kind of use as a comparison for Penn State, they beat Indiana 24-17 and lost to Minnesota 31-0, which kind of tells the story. Like Indiana, probably the worst team that Penn State has played since the conference schedule. We're talking about Power 5 opponents, at least, probably the worst team that Penn State has played. And Rutgers did beat them, but 24-17, yeah, not great. I mean,
I do have
better than a
I,
loss,
like
but
I understand like their defense it's stats well and it's pretty well ranked. Like an SP plus, it's 38th in the country. But I do wonder because their offense is so horrific if teams are just like doing the bare minimum to win the
right.
game, knowing if they get basically to 24 points, they're going to win. Like, look at the Michigan game. I think it was Rutgers had a lead at one point, or it was like tied at halftime, 17-7. Then Michigan just
Yeah,
like, we need some points to win this game, and
right.
ended up with like 5 straight touchdown drives.
Yeah,
But
that
again,
that's
like,
fair.
I don't know if they're like unleashing the beast per se against Rutgers because they don't need points to win. So I don't know if that's like kind of it may be a little bit, but they are talented. Let's be clear on that.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is there's definitely, I'm sure, a twinge of that going on. Just because how could there not be? Like,
Right.
especially as you get into the Big Ten schedule, like coaches and teams, like if you have the opportunity to not go full throttle, it does behoove you to not do that, knowing you have other more important and more difficult games. So that's definitely a fair point. But like you said, there's still a talented unit. Like there's going to be a couple more than at least a couple dudes that are going to stick on in the NFL somewhere on that defense, probably. On the offensive side of the ball, their quarterback room has been a mess all year. They've had, I think, 4 different dudes attempt at least 50 passes on the season. Um, right now, and starting last week was Gavin Wimsatt. He went 20 of 34 against Michigan State, 236 yards and 2 touchdowns. Formerly a four-star recruit, one of Rutgers' better gets in the recruiting world, and he actually ended up after he committed, he ended up reclassifying and getting to school even earlier than expected to get a little more experience. And he's not there yet, but maybe in a couple of years, like Wimsatt could definitely be something for that program. That'll be interesting to see. But elsewhere on that offense, you have Johnny Langan doing his bad Taysom Hill impression. Aaron Cruikshank, he's a solid player. I think he's someone that is gonna do more in the NFL than he did in college, just based on his situation. Right now in the year, 40 catches, 362 yards, but he's explosive. I don't know that that's going to be enough to do much against Penn State secondary, but when we look at this game specifically, Penn State favored by 19 points, even on the road in Piscataway. The weather looks like it should be pretty good. It's going to be right around 50 degrees and sunny. And I thought this was really cool. This is a sellout for Rutgers, which,
Oh, yeah.
there obviously, a lot of Penn State alums in New Jersey too,
Right.
so that plays a part. But still,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. It's just not something that happens a whole lot there.
It's probably not a tough ticket for those Penn State alum that don't want to drive all the way to Happy Valley and have to
Right.
spend a night in a hotel and all that. So,
Yeah.
but that's
And I
great.
know my parents are not Penn State alums, but they do root for Penn State now. They're both going to the game. They both still live in New Jersey. So hopefully it'll be a nice day there. The only other thing that's really to note for Penn State in this game, Joey Porter Jr., I would assume, is not going to play. We found out
Right.
officially that he had appendicitis. I would probably, I maybe he's back for the bowl game, but I would certainly don't expect to see him over these next 2 weeks here.
Agreed.
And then Olu Fashanu, we don't know exactly what Olu's injury is, but I would guess he's probably also out for these last 2 weeks. Again, same situation, maybe back for the bowl game. We'll see. And then the last big one, Curtis Jacobs, was seen practicing this week. So that would imply that he could potentially be back for this one. But if not this one, then probably Michigan State.
Michigan State.
Um,
Yeah.
Especially for him, like he's somebody who could end up going to the NFL. So that would be his last chance to play in Beaver Stadium. So definitely something to consider there for him too. Craig, we will do predictions, but we don't need to break down this game, the way that we
Right.
do other
Sure.
games. I'm more interested. What do you care about in this game?
It's a fine line. I'm still right. This is a great opportunity to build for next year. I would love to see the freshman class or just the younger guys that have really started to come and turn it on a little bit, get more run. And it's a hard spot too, because they are already getting a lot of run.
Right.
I believe Abdul Carter was maybe the highest snap count on against Maryland on the entire defense. I'm not 100% sure on that, but he was right up there, right? Um, but I did, things that he loves seeing, like Zane Durant with his first sack in Beaver Stadium. Like,
Hmm.
let's get him a lot of playing time. Zariah Fisher is back unexpectedly from injury against Maryland. Opportunity for him to get reps and get, he's missed so much time. Get his work in. And then, I mean, the obvious one is like people want to see Drew Aller play, you know, hopefully an entire half of football. And I get what Jimmy is saying with, we already have injuries on the O line. We are then moving to kind of like our third string O line if we take the starters out. How, like, we want to protect, we don't want to get him hurt unnecessarily. Um, but he needs to get time with the ones in a real football situation. And so I'm hoping that let me be clear. I don't have any problem with how his PT has been handled thus far. I'm just hoping that they get to this point where they realize their defense is really good. They shut out an offense last week that is light years better than Rutgers.
Hmm.
And I feel like once to get, I mean, roll the dice, whatever. If you get three scores up, let's give the kid some time. He doesn't have to play the rest of the game. He could get two series in the first quarter, second quarter,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So
Yeah. I think, yeah, like you said, Franklin mentioned that he didn't think it was as valuable for Aller to be in there, with the patchwork offensive line. I think the fact it was, especially for the portion of the game last week where Aller was in, that was when it was raining the hardest too. I think the fact that the weather will be better this week will make it a bit more of a situation conducive to getting him time. But I totally agree with the last thing you said. Like I would be really interested this week to see like Clifford get the first two drives and then let Aller get a drive and then go back to like this is not it's Rutgers is, yeah, they gave Michigan that weird little scare for a half. Like they're not a tire fire of a football team. They're just not a good football team. And like you said, Penn State's defense is just playing an otherworldly level right now. The last 2 weeks held both opponents, Indiana and Maryland, to under 200 total yards. Like they are at they are on a different plane of existence right now, and I think I agree. Like if they can go out and score on the first two drives, I would want to see Aller in that third drive just to mix it in, see what happens. Um, Other things I was thinking about for what I'd like to see in this game, I'd like to see Nick Singleton continue his climb to 1,000 yards. He's
Ooh.
at like I think just barely over 8 right now. I think is where he is. Um, I'd like to see Katron Allen get another touchdown to make it so both he and Singleton have surpassed the previous freshman touchdown record. Noah Cain set that a couple years ago with 8. Singleton, I believe, is at 10 now, and Allen is still sitting at 8.
correct on both those numbers. Singleton 123 for 801. Allen 124 for 631. 8 touchdowns for Allen, 10 touchdowns for Singleton.
God, that's cool. Um,
So cool.
the other thing um, I wouldn't say it's something I care about. I'm more just interested to see how they handle it. I think it's become pretty clear through practice reports and just seeing tweets from the beat writers and stuff that, and hearing Franklin himself, like they would very much like to preserve Drew Shelton's red shirt. If they are going to do that, he cannot play in another game this year.
Right.
And with Oli Fashanu already on the shelf, Landon Tengwall out for the year, Caden Wallace has been banged up. It is hard to see how they are able to do that. I mean, the obvious answer I think is you toss Bryce Effner out there at left tackle, or maybe even give Caden Wallace a shot at it, just to see what happens. Like I don't know what they've been doing in practice as far as who's been repping where, but do you think they're going to be able to do that? Do you think they're going to be able to preserve that shirt for Shelton?
I don't think they will. I mean, they could, but it would just be really tough sledding for really no reason. And here's why. And we kind of talked about this preseason that if you have a true freshman in Drew Shelton that is already playing a ton, the chances of him getting a fifth year at some point at Penn State are almost zero.
Yeah.
So barring injury, which certainly could happen, what exactly are we holding him back for other than the flexibility in roster management sometime down the road?
I am of the opinion, Craig, that I think the reason that they are pushing so hard to redshirt him, I think it actually tells us a little something about what they think about Olu Fashanu coming back next year.
Interesting.
I think that it behooves them to keep his red shirt if Fashanu is planning on returning, because Fashanu is your starter at left tackle if he's here. Now, Shelton could very easily end up being the starter at right tackle next year if that's how they choose to go. But also, Caden Wallace can also still return. I know Wallace has been very up and down this year, but at that point, then, you know, do you like if you burn that red shirt now, and I guess theoretically he could end up taking one next year, like barring injury or something. But um, if you burn the red shirt now, and Olu Fashanu comes back next year, now all of a sudden you're looking at maybe 1 year of Drew Shelton as your starting left tackle, maybe two. And if they clearly think a lot of him, so I that's kind of where I'm at right now. Like I think this could be a sign that they think Fashanu is coming back and they are trying to finagle a way into getting Shelton for 2 years of starting. Now, of course, even if he does take the red shirt, and if Fashanu comes back and Shelton starts that 1 year, he could still leave, right? Like it's still
Right.
3 years, he could still go. But that's kind of where I'm at. That's a very, tinfoil hat theory for sure, but that's just my weird random guess at it personally.
Yeah.
Um
It's a
sorry, go ahead.
hard spot for no, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's a hard spot for me to say, like, if he is coming back and you have the potential to redshirt him next year. I mean, obviously he will be in that competition with right tackle, we assume,
Yeah.
but the number of snaps that he's played and how well he's performed, sure, there's been a couple freshman moments, but it's like remarkable. The guy was not an early enrollee. He came this summer
Yeah.
and is they're still preferring to run left
Hmm.
generally.
Yeah.
Now, not now all the time. Singleton's 2 4th-and-1 touchdowns were, I believe, over the right side, but regardless, um, I don't know. The calculus is crazy. I love the tinfoil hat idea. I would love to see Fashanu and Shelton as bookends, slide Wallace inside, and then your line is four guys. I'm not sure who would be center at that point if Scruggs doesn't come back, but your line is four guys with a ton of experience at that point. So
Yeah, I'm kind of at this point. I'm assuming it's gonna be Norzad next year. That's my guess.
at center, you mean?
Yeah, at center.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Yeah. Overall, we've talked about it a lot. I think we're all very clear that we agree that if you're good enough to play as a freshman, you should be playing as a freshman because you're not going to be around for that long anyway. The only place where I am willing to say you can be really good and maybe worthy of playing. Sorry, if you're watching a video, my light just flickered on me. The only place I am more willing to say, yeah, you might be capable of playing and contributing right now, but let's try to figure out that red shirt is the offensive line. Like that is the one
Sure,
room where I want as much talent stacked into that room as you can possibly get in there, just because injuries happen so often. Guys very easily, like they can be great 1 year and fall off the face of the earth the next year. Like
sure.
we've seen it happen time after time. So that is the one place where I'd like to stack as much as I can. But Craig, we're going to talk about some other things after the ad read here. So let's just dive right into predictions here.
Okay.
What are you thinking? Like I said, Penn State favored by 19 on the road. I don't have SP plus handy. Don't know what that is. I'm assuming it's probably somewhere in the same neighborhood. What are you thinking for this game?
I It's a weird spot. I feel like Penn State doesn't really come out guns blazing in Piscataway. And so games tend to have the appearance that they're a little bit closer than they might be. Like if you remember all the way back to, I want to say it was 2018 on the road with McSorley, and they just didn't have the juice. Trace might have been nicked at that end of the season there, but just didn't really have the juice. Came away with a victory, but it wasn't impressive.
Was
and
that
they
the
did the same thing.
two touchdown day for Pat Fryermuth?
It's certainly possible.
I was at whatever game though. I was at the game in Piscataway when
Was
Fryermuth
it
caught
raining?
two
I
touchdowns.
don't remember.
It might have been raining. I think it was raining early and then maybe stopped. It was a gross day.
Anyway, I think it's going to be something like 35-12 in that area, 35-16, something that is basically there will be plenty for fans to complain about, and it'll just be kind of like a ho hum, another victory, 9-2. Let's move on.
Of course, I assume Rutgers would be getting to that 12-point mark with a touchdown, a field goal, and a safety, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking 6 safeties. No, yeah.
That would be the most incredible football game if you win 35-12, but you give up 6 safeties. That would be remarkable. Oh my God. That's officially what I want to happen this weekend. I'm thinking something similar. I'm thinking like 38-7, 38-10. Like, I don't expect Rutgers' offense to do all that much. I think Penn State will, I think they'll keep it on the ground for the most part while Clifford's in the game. I think when Aller gets out there, they'll let him throw a little bit, just, for the reps. I could very easily see Aller having enough time in this one to go over 100 yards with a couple touchdowns. If all things breaks right, that'd be kind of fun.
I like that.
Yeah, something around that. I don't think it's going to be all that competitive. And again, like it's not because like Rutgers is capable of at least scaring you a little bit, but the Penn State defense is just playing so well right now that I just don't think it'll matter all that much. Craig, are you planning to buy any home field apparel for your loved ones this holiday season?
It is interesting that you say that, Nick, because I'm probably going to buy some for myself.
Oh, okay. That's
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see that coming. Tell me
Yeah.
about that. But buy it for yourself, like as your own holiday gift.
No, just take advantage of sales and get myself
Okay.
some stuff.
It's
Yeah,
funny that you talk about sales because our friends over at Home Field, this is going to be the rare time that we don't tell you to use our Roar Lines Roar code because instead, sorry, excuse me, something in my throat today. Instead, they have special Black Friday and holiday deals coming up for Cyber Monday. So today is what? Thursday, November 17th, as we are
That is
recording this.
correct. Yes.
Tomorrow, when you are hearing this on Friday, November 18th, it is the beginning of Home Field's Black Friday sale. So if you use the code Black Friday, all caps, all one word, you get 20% off your order. So
Ooh.
normally our Roar Lines Roar is 15%. This is for 20%. That sale will run from tomorrow, November 18th, through November 27th, 2 days before my birthday. And this is according to them, this is the biggest discount they offer all year to everyone, basically. And I don't believe that this is actually, I believe this is just for anything. Like this is not, normally our
Right.
Royal Lines Roar code
Not
is
school
first time
specific.
only.
Sure.
Yeah. This is for anyone. So definitely a great thing to take advantage of here. And once we get to, Cyber Monday portion of this, we'll talk about that code as well. But for now, use that code Black Friday, all caps, all one word. You get 20% off your first order for, we've talked about Home Field Apparel before. We love their stuff. Soft, comfortable, unique, great people to work with, funny on social media, all that jazz. We love Home Field. We love working with them. Yeah, now you've inspired me now. I think I'm going to also, my wife has been bugging me for, gift ideas for my birthday, which is coming up at the end of the month, but I'm probably just going to go on and buy this for myself anyway. And that'll really, I'm sure it'll make her really happy, but she doesn't listen to our podcast, so she won't hear this because, and I quote, I tried listening to it once and I heard your voice and I started laughing. So I guess I'm safe. This is a safe space for me.
It's cruel.
It's very cruel. I know, Matt was telling us a story on Slack the other day. How we'll wait for Matt to come. We'll let Matt tell that story himself. It's a good one. But once again, use that code Black Friday, all caps, all one words on Home Field Apparel to get 20% off of your order. It doesn't have to be your first time. Take advantage. Get some of that awesome Home Field stuff into your wardrobe today. Now, Craig, let's have some fun at the end of this podcast. We're going to kind of bounce all over the map here. We're going to start with some very brief Penn State Rutgers trivia because
Oh
I was a
no.
little bit surprised by some of these things that I found looking at the the all-time head-to-head page. So first things first, Craig, do you know what the largest margin of victory in this matchup is of all time?
I want to say it's the McQueary game, something like 56-7 or something like that. I'm not 100% sure though.
It is actually only a 39. I mean, 39 points is a lot. It was 39 nothing. But that
Oh,
is the largest margin of victory in this game, and that was the game in 2016. Actually,
interesting.
yeah. I said as I read that I was surprised, but I guess when you consider like 39 points is a lot. It's
It's a
like,
lot.
yeah, because like when I see largest margin of victory, I expect like the winning side of the score to be like up in the 50s or something. But I guess when the other side's a zero, that makes it pretty. That makes it pretty lopsided. Do you know the last time that Rutgers won this game?
Ooh. I actually just opened Wikipedia, but I'm not looking. I want to say it
What?
was like
You know what I'm asking you? Why would you
no.
do
I
that?
th- I th- I wanted, I think it was like 91 or 97, something like that.
It was
Hit me.
1988.
Oh, I was only
Rutgers
off by 3 years.
Rutgers won 21-16 in State College, actually. Yeah. And then the last one I have for you here, stop looking at the Wikipedia. I
I
see your eyes
minimized it.
darting. Yep.
Minimized it.
Yep.
Here we
Yep.
go.
Yep. What was the result of the first ever game between these two programs? And can you hazard a guess as to what year that took place
Oh
in?
my gosh. Let's say something ridiculous like 1915 Penn State in 1915.
You're very close. It was
Oh.
1918.
Oh.
1918. Rutgers won
Okay.
26-3, also in State College. So the only two times Rutgers has ever won this game have both come in Happy Valley, which is pretty interesting.
1918 and 1988, just
Yeah.
a casual 70 years in between victories.
So, watch out when we get to 70 years. That'd be 2058. Watch out in 2058. Rutgers is coming. Greg Schiano will probably still be their head coach by then
Holy
somehow.
cow.
Um, I wish I had more Rutgers trivia questions to ask. Sadly, I was not able to come up with anything more interesting than that. So,
How many turnovers did Gary Nova have against our defense
oh,
in his career? No, I don't really know. It was a lot though. I think 6 in one game.
yeah, because the pass beyond the line of scrimmage, that was 6 in that game. I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
6 INTs?
I th-
That's unbelievable.
one might have. I think there might have been a fumble in there too. It was a lot. It was a
That's
lot.
gross.
We tormented that dude. I almost felt bad. Um, to turn the tide on the conversation a little bit here. Penn State came in the college football playoff rankings this week at number 11. And if you follow a wide range of, actually not even if you follow them on Twitter anymore, because the algorithm, I swear, I literally counted the other day, the top 36 tweets that appeared on my timeline feed, 3 of them were from people that I actually follow. It was ridiculous. Like it's
Brutal.
out of control. And we're going to talk more about that in just a few minutes. But the point being that I saw a lot of people, fans of other programs, a lot of, Washington for me, specifically Mariners and Seahawks people overlap. But a lot of people saying, why is Penn State 11? We could easily beat that team. Obviously people that haven't watched Penn State at all don't understand how good they are, but Penn State doesn't have a good win this year. I guess you could, like, Minnesota is probably the closest thing they have to a good win. Auburn hasn't been good, so you can't count that. Like the
Well,
best win
Minnesota
they
did.
have is the first 3 quarters of the Ohio State game.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, Minnesota was a good win and they totally dominated them at home in the whiteout, but they were without Tanner Morgan.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that changes the outcome of that game. Regardless, Penn State probably still wins, but it changes the outcome of that game.
totally.
I mean, their best 2 wins are Minnesota and Purdue, and I don't think there's really any question about that. They're making hay off of playing Ohio State really tight for 3 quarters I mean, 3.5 quarters,
Mhm.
and their only two losses are to number 2 and number 3 in the college football playoff rankings.
Right.
So,
Like they are so I think something I think a lot of Penn State fans are taking for granted this year. It's something we should probably talk more about is how good of a job Penn State is doing handling the games that they should win. Like college that's just a difficult thing for college football teams to do. Like it's difficult for 18 to 22-year-olds to consistently perform at the level they're expected to when they're playing down to competition. Like there's a very small handful of programs that can consistently do that year over the year. And that's something that Penn State has struggled with over the last however many years. Like they do not always make their easy games look easy, but they've done that this year. To me,
right,
that's one of the fueling things behind how they got to it. Like they are truly smashing the teams that they are supposed to destroy. So I think that's part of it. Um, you can also talk about how, the committee clearly thinks a lot of Ohio State and Michigan. So, they need to continue to move Penn State up to make both those teams continue to look good. Like we could do a whole podcast just about, playoff committee conspiracy theories with rankings and whatnot. But
sure.
um, do you think that they are, well, I guess first, do you think that it's a fair spot for them to be?
I think it's a fair spot because again, their two losses are to number 2 and number 3,
Sure.
and they've won, like you said, they've won every other game that they've played. And when you get into it, when you're talking about weaknesses of everyone from 6 down, there's games that were pretty ugly, games that you know, like take LSU for example. Their two
Hmm.
losses are not to number 2 and number 3. Their
They are
losses
not.
are to Florida State and Tennessee. Well, obviously Tennessee is very good, but they absolutely smoked LSU. And then Clemson. I mean, is a disgusting offense to watch. It's just brutal. And then Alabama, everybody, they don't look as strong as they have. Um,
They're
then
only
you
only
have
a couple seconds away from being a 3-loss team in that
right.
Texas game. Yeah.
So, I mean, and here's my thing, Nick, and you basically, if they do a good job and get the top 4, after that, I just want to see cool matchups.
Right.
I don't really like, you can put basically 6 through 16 in a bag, shake them up, and you're probably going to get good games out of those teams if you match them up in the New Year's Six. I
Right.
hope that Penn State is one of them because it is a reward for the team for having a presumable 10-win season. It's a great opportunity for the fans to go someplace and enjoy a game against a marquee opponent. There's bragging rights, there's recruiting implications, there's everything that goes along with it. There's the national TV stage, and they're the most talked about bowl games of the year.
Yeah.
So, I think they're sitting in a good spot with how the Pac-12, SEC, and ACC will shake out. That they're probably going to end up in that like 8 to 11 spot when the final rankings are done, and hopefully that's enough to get them selected to New Year's Six.
Yeah, I'd say, assuming that they're able to take care of business against Rutgers and Michigan State, considering the other things that just mathematically have to happen, even if one of Ohio State or Michigan gets knocked out of the top 4, I have a pretty hard time seeing Penn State not get a New Year's Six bid just because of how it has to shake out. Like it things just have to happen a certain way at a certain point with matchups and whatnot. Um, I wish I think Matt has shared this opinion before. Like I wish obviously never going to happen because the job of the committee and of ESPN is to drive narrative and conversation. So that's the only reason why we get 25 of these rankings. Like what's the point? Like what? Like
Right.
who cares who the 23rd ranked team is by the college football playoff committee? The playoff that includes 4 teams. Like NC State has currently number 24. NC State's not making the play. Like what's the point of that? But it'd be way more fascinating if each week let's say they only release the top 6 each week, right? Like say you're 4 in and then the first 2 out, and then
Sure.
in the last week then you just get boom, here's everyone else, here's how we lay them out. Like that'd be way more interesting to me. Obviously never gonna happen because narrative, money, all that stuff, but that would be interesting. Um, last question I had for you about rankings. So, like you talked about LSU, two really, I mean, not really bad, both of them, but bad losses. Like not good losses for either team. And I think it's something that we talk about every single year with the playoff. What matters more, good wins or bad losses? And based on the year, based on the team, that distinction, of course, changes. Like it doesn't really matter. It's just who does the committee want in that top four, and then they'll shape the narrative to whatever they need it to be. I've seen a lot of people out there who have said, why is LSU ahead of Penn State? Are you one of those people that thinks that there is a legitimate case to be made for Penn State to be ahead of LSU? And then, for sake of argument, the other two lost teams ahead of them, Alabama at number 8 and Utah at number 10.
So specifically, I think that LSU has two much better wins than anything that Penn State has done against Alabama and against Ole Miss. You could throw Florida in there, though Florida has had an extremely up and down Jekyll and Hyde type season. And obviously Penn State also destroyed Auburn, which LSU struggled at Auburn. And, we were all pulling for our
the
War
very
Eagle that day.
underrated Auburn Wildcats. Yeah, they're really good. Don't let anything fool you. They're a fantastic team.
So those two wins, I think, regardless of the losses, even though Penn State started 2-3, put LSU up there. Alabama is name recognition. They're never
sure.
They really want to continue to keep them up there, right? Because they're obviously likely going to win out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm not sure of the tiebreakers. Are they already eliminated from the SEC West title, or is that still in flux?
I'm not sure.
LSU has Texas A&M. Oh, no. Okay. They're playing Georgia. That's locked. So LSU is going to the championship game. And again, this is why they are 6, right? Because presumably they're going to go. They have UAB and Texas A&M. Presumably they're going to go to Georgia, Atlanta, and play Georgia in the SEC championship game. And then you have this, they were 6th, but they beat number 1. Right. If they, they're not going to. Okay.
Or you have Georgia number 1, and if for some reason they lose, you can say, oh, well, they only lost to number 6. So it kind of works both ways. Yeah.
Exactly. But, again, this will be part of the Michigan-Ohio State thing. Like, if that's a double overtime game, the committee is kind of screwed having them 2-3 and then saying one of them cannot be in the top 4 teams in the country.
Yeah.
Now, Utah, I know absolutely nothing about. They have a really tough game against Oregon this week.
They're Utah. It's the same team.
They lost at Florida, right? That was a crazy game. They lost at LSU. That's kind of was like LSU's coming out party in early October. I don't know.
When you look at the list, it's really hard to make an argument that anybody who is currently behind LSU should be ahead of them, right? Because USC, they're 9-1, but it's not like they have an impressive resume necessarily.
And Utah beat USC.
Yeah, Utah beat USC, and Utah's behind them. Yeah, so that's not going to happen. Like we already talked about Alabama, Clemson. Yeah, again, they're 9-1, but they lost to a horrific Notre Dame offense. Like they clearly don't deserve to be. Like I would argue, my biggest qualm on this list is probably that Clemson is still in the top 10. Really, like I get it, but
it's gross. I am hopeful that North Carolina can beat them in the ACC championship game, and then we don't have to worry about any of this because I don't think they're going to elevate an 11-1 UNC into the top 4 if the other things remain constant.
No,
and Ohio State and Michigan play a close game. If TCU wins out, if Georgia wins out, it's probably going to be those 4, probably in a little bit of a different configuration so that Michigan and Ohio State don't play again right after like the next game. But um, yeah,
What do you? That'd be kind of interesting, actually. If their next, well, it wouldn't be their next game
it'd
because
be
one of them may
right
be
because of
playing
the
in the
championship
championship.
game,
But
right?
um,
So stupid. It's going to end up being like Michigan or Ohio State playing Purdue in Indianapolis or Iowa.
I mean,
It's
it can
awful.
still be anybody, can it? Aside from
Yeah,
Northwestern, I think everybody's still alive.
it definitely can be Minnesota, Northwest, or Minnesota, Illinois, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Purdue. I think
Yeah.
all have a shot.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Nebraska's. Yeah, Nebraska's
Yeah,
probably
they're
out.
done.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. That. Yeah. God, you could talk for years about the playoff. Really. Um. Actually, speaking of Ohio State, Michigan, are you? I think, like we said, based on the way it's laid out right now, especially if TCU picks up a loss, I'd say the chances of Ohio State and Michigan both making the playoff is pretty high at the moment. Do you like that? I personally am very much on team put them both in because I want the Rose Bowl.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see that for sure. And here's the thing, like, talk about this with family members and whomever and Slack guys and blog guys and Twitter guys all the time. It's you want the four best teams. To me, it doesn't matter where they come from.
Sure.
If you're, like you say, if this is a close game, if you know Jackson Smith and Jigba plays,
Hmm.
if Ohio State can get their running backs together and do just a little bit on defense to make Michigan throw the ball, I think they have a really good chance of winning. But I don't. I think like the strength of Michigan goes up against the weakness of Ohio State, and probably vice versa. It's the fact that it's in Columbus. I'm going to give the edge to the Buckeyes. But yeah, I mean, you go this season, and they both are performing the way that they are, and obliterating teams in a myriad of different ways. Um, I think you put both of them in.
I think what's so interesting about the game this year, especially, is that neither team has had to play a team like even relatively close to the caliber of the other stylistically. Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
think Penn State is terribly far away from either one, but Penn State doesn't play similarly to either one of those teams. Like I guess
Right.
it's closer to Ohio State than Michigan, but it's still very different. I think that adds an interesting wrinkle. Like because normally, like if you're at Ohio State, you've probably played a team or two from the West that play similar to Michigan. Um, but I think that's gonna be an interesting wrinkle. Yeah, we could talk about that a little more next week too. I currently I'm thinking that Ohio State wins, but we'll see. So if you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to go ahead and assume you're probably also a user of twitter.com. And if you are probably aware that Elon Musk is currently attempting to just go scorched earth and burn this thing all the way to the ground. So it is not out of the realm of possibility that, by Monday, who knows what Twitter is going to be. Like, from the sounds of it, like they have doors closed all weekend as they try to figure stuff out. And I based on how many engineers have left and whatnot, I'd say the chances of the website not breaking over the weekend are pretty slim. Like I'd be shocked if it was fully functional all weekend. Like I know they're code freeze and everything. Like nothing's gonna get fixed this weekend if something goes down. So very well could be the end. So I just wanted to spend just a couple minutes here talking about some of our favorite, Penn State related Twitter memories. So how about you kick us off?
I'll start with one that actually relates to the team, and it was the 2017 game at Iowa. And
Hmm.
Saquon Barkley set the Penn State all-time all-purpose yards record, and it was a primetime game, and there were just so many NFL players that were agog at what Barkley was doing on the field that Twitter was just. I specifically remember Zeke. I specifically remember Odell Beckham Jr. And just the list goes on. Like this guy is for real. Look at what he's doing. Like we've never seen anything like this. It's just just giving the respect to what was probably the best individual performance I've ever seen on a football field.
That was
It was just
remarkable.
awesome to see. And obviously the way that the game ended, Penn State Twitter was in hysterics over how great everything was. It was just really cool to see. You don't see that call out very often. Guys from the pro ranks being tuned into a college game is pretty rare because they got their own
Yeah.
thing going on. Maybe they watch their alma mater play, but to see these pros from all over the league just saying how amazing 26 was really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good one. Um, I think for me, one of the one of the first ones I think of is the Big Ten championship in 2016.
Yes.
One at the very beginning with everybody just clowning on how great Penn State's intro video was compared to
Oh my
Wisconsin's.
gosh.
Um,
LeVar.
LeVar versus Russ. Like, come on, you can't get Russ for that. What are you doing, Wisconsin? Come on. Um, but what, like, so we talk so much about how, you know, I think every fan base has sort of a natural division amongst its fans, especially on Twitter. Like, there's usually the overly pessimistic crowd and then the overly optimistic crowd. Like, there's usually a pretty clear divide. Like, every single fan base is constantly at war with itself. Like, there is no truly harmonious fan base out there in the in the year 2022. But I one of the few moments where I truly feel like everybody was on the same page, and not that there weren't some nervous folks or whatnot, but when Penn State scored the late touchdown in the first half, the deep ball side
Mm-hmm.
Blacknall, to make the
Mm-hmm.
score, what, 20 was
20.
28-7 or
It was
21-7.
that made it 28 14.
28-14. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But regardless, like really at all the points, when it was 21-0, when it was 21-7, when it was 28-14, at all those different points, like I feel like there was just this like calm over Penn State Twitter, because it was like, we've seen them do this all year. Like, this is the DNA of this team. They make incredible halftime adjustments. Like, we know this game isn't over. We were like, everyone was just so sure that this game was nowhere close to being decided. And it's just like, I argue with like Mariners fans and Penn State fans on Twitter every day, and it kills my soul. But that was like a very rare moment I can think of, aside from maybe like the Mariners making the playoffs this year as another example.
Sure.
But like that just level of just agreement and like harmony just doesn't really happen all that often in just the sports social media world evermore. So that's one of my favorites.
Definitely a good one. And that's kind of like the situation's a little bit more house money. Like
Right.
there's obviously a chance for us to go to the playoff, but this is extra football. It was totally unexpected. People were just riding that wave of, holy cow, we're actually here. Second half team, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
I would like to submit for consideration an a Roar Lines Roar blog um, chicanery on Twitter when the Purdue job opened up before they hired Brom. We strongly petitioned for Pat Narduzzi to become Perduzzi and be in the race for the Purdue head coach. So much to the point that he was asked about it at his weekly press conference the following week. And it still goes down to this day as one of the finest coalescence of just
It might be the best
idiot.
thing we
It's
accomplished
idiots on
as an
Twitter.
entity.
Idiots on Twitter just making this thing happen, and I mean, it really truly shows the power of the platform and what social media can be when it's at its greatest thing. That just a bunch of guys who write about Penn State because we all, we went there and we loved it, and it's just something that's fun for us to do. And Pat Narduzzi, who is a Division I head football coach, gets asked about a rumor that we started on social media at his weekly press conference.
God,
Driving
that
that
was
train, baby.
it was so great. Just the it spread like wildfire. Like somebody like created the flight tracker path so you could see
Oh
the
my
flight from
gosh.
Pittsburgh to West Lafayette. Yeah. Oh God. I
Photoshopped
will
him on Purdue Pete's head. Like there was photoshops of him on Purdue Pete's head, of him
on
hitting
the
the huge drum, of the
on the train
train.
going by.
Boiler up, baby.
Oh, that will never be topped. That was so unbelievably funny. For those of you watching or listening, I'll try to find some of the tweets and link them in the description. Just where, unfortunately, the articles that we wrote aren't live anymore. They're lost to the internet archives at this point. But we could definitely find some of the tweets. I'll at least try to find the flight tracker. That was my favorite part. Yeah, God, so funny. All right. So the other one that I really enjoyed was also 2016, actually. So 2016, for those of you who don't know, 2016 was actually the year that we launched Rural Lions Roar. Also, great timing on our part, right?
Yeah.
Aside from the football team, in the winter season, Penn
Oh,
State
yeah, this is good.
continued to make waves. And on the same night that the wrestling team was wrestling for a Big Ten title and the hockey team was playing for a Big Ten title, the hockey team was up against Wisconsin. The game, I believe, the game had gone into overtime. Pretty much at the same time as I, I think it was
I
Bo
think it was the
Nickel.
I think it was the NCAA's for the
It was the
wrestling team.
NCAA's. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds
So
right.
it's a national championship for wrestling and the Big Ten championship for hockey.
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's right. And I feel like I think it was Bo Nickel that clinched the title for the team, if I remember correctly. Regardless, though, basically at the same time, like the wrestling team clinched the national title, and Liam Falk scored the breakaway
Oh my
goal against
God.
Wisconsin in overtime to win the Big Ten title, basically simultaneously. And it was like it was like whiplash. Like every tweet was like wrestling, hockey, wrestling, hockey. Like I was furiously bouncing back and forth between channels trying to catch them both. My wife and her friend were her friend was over visiting and we were watching both. And they don't neither of them care about wrestling or hockey, especially Penn State wrestling and hockey. Like, but even them, like as I was flipping back and forth between these channels, like they were screaming at me, like, go back to wrestling. No, go back to hockey. Like it was crazy. It was so much fun. And that whole 2017 season for Penn State athletics was just so exciting. And yeah, like I
Fantastic
said, like
stuff.
that was our first year as Roar Lions Roar. So just we were furious with our engagement with the Penn State community. So just having so much fun on there. That was such
It
a
was a blast.
fun night. Hopefully, maybe, well, not hopefully, but like Twitter is awful, but Twitter is also like like I think I don't know if I've told this story before on the podcast. Like Twitter is why I started writing about Penn State sports personally. Like when I was in my junior year at Penn State, I like occasionally read Black Shoe Diaries. Like I wasn't like reading every day or anything, but I occasionally read it. And I followed Bill on Twitter, and he posted something one day. He was like, quick, somebody, I'll follow first of all, Bill tweeted, I'll follow the first person who can tell me, like, get off your high horse, Bill. But he tweeted like, I'll follow the person who can tell me like the best episode of Scrubs. And I love
Oh, that's
Scrubs.
your
So
jam. Yeah.
yeah, I love Scrubs. I immediately tweeted back my lunch, which for those of you that watch or those of you who don't know, it's the episode where they inadvertently they get an organ donor for 3 patients in the hospital that are waiting for transplants, and they find out after they do the transplants that the donor had rabies. And they lose all 3. Hey, it's a very serious episode. Don't laugh. And they lose all 3 patients, unfortunately. And Dr. Cox, John C. McGinley, just loses his mind and can't handle it, walks out of the hospital. It's a very, very good episode of television. Is it actually where it featured How to Save a Life by the Fray, and that was kind of how that song like started getting popular, actually. But I tweeted that at Bill. He's like, cool, followed me. We met up to watch a soccer game at Chrome. I live right above Chrome, if any of you know that bar, even if it's still there in State College. And then that just led to me writing like I went to a lot of Penn State baseball games at that point. So I just wrote like little recaps of Penn State baseball games for Black Shoe Diaries for him to include. And then from there, they needed a recruiting writer. So I dove into that, and that, eventually led me to this. So I owe my Penn State, whatever we want to call his career, quote unquote, to Twitter. And obviously, like Craig, we met through Twitter. Like
Yep.
our whole, Slack with all of our Penn State people, we all met through Twitter. Like it's if this is the end of it, I will be sad. Like it's led me to a lot of great people for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. So if it is, thanks for everything, Twitter. But I think it's about time we get out of here today. As a reminder, this was at one point a podcast about the Penn State and Rutgers football game. Craig and I both think that Penn State is going to win handily, should very easily cover that 19-point spread. We're hoping to see a lot of Drew Aller. Any final thoughts back on that football game that, as a reminder, yes, that is happening this weekend?
You just hope we can get out of there injury free, really, because it's coming down to the end of the season. You don't want to see anybody, in a detrimental place to start either bowl practices or the spring campaign. So let's get the dub, get out of there injury free, and on to senior day in Michigan State, which should be an exciting time
for the world's best trophy. Soon. It's coming soon. Yeah, we should do more podcasts like this, Craig, where we just kind of riff on random stuff. This is fun. Thanks for hopping on tonight. This is a good time, man. So that's going to do it for us. If you're not subscribed and following the podcast already, please do so on your podcast platform of choice. Leave us 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts if you can. Also, make sure you subscribe on YouTube and check us out there. Hit that alert bell. If you want to see these beautiful 6-foot nutcrackers that Craig's wife has been building, you make sure you check. One last time. Show us again. Oh man. Yeah, those things are definitely coming to life. You're screwed there. So be sure to check us out on YouTube as well. But I think that's going to do it for tonight. For myself, Nick Pollock, for my co-host Craig Fritz, thanks for listening. Go State.
Go State.